Damn, he really deserted his Elden Ring fanbase already. SMH my head. What's up, boys? Flock of never dating a depressed goth girl ever again here, and welcome back to a video that should have been done like a month or two ago if I really cared about getting any views, but I always seem to be a day late, 2 steps behind, and about 3 inches short. Anyways, told myself I wanted to diversify my content, and so here's the first video of that diversification, and my first video of 2023. In this video, we will see if I can beat Pokemon Scarlet without evolving any Pokemon. Funny story about this, actually. My original idea for this video was for it to be a Nuzlocke of Pokemon Scarlet, but without me knowing a single thing about the game. Like, I purposefully did not research a single thing about the game outside of the starters and knowing who Lechonk was. And yeah, needless to say, there's a reason why you're watching this video instead of that one. Okay, let me establish the rules for this run because there are a few limitations that I put onto myself. They're pretty simple, and they are as follows. 1. I can only use first form evolutions of Pokemon. 2. I'm allowed to use 2 Pokemon that don't evolve on my team at any given time. So Pokemon like Hawlucha or Tauros, for example. Number 3. I'm allowed to use up to 5 healing items in battle. I was rusty, okay? Give me a fucking break, dude. Last but not least, I have to use the set mode in important battles like gym leaders, team star bosses, rival battles, etc. Now, one note that I want to make before we get into, like, the main game, I cut out a lot of Nemona's battles because, honestly, they're not challenging, so besides the one in the very end of the game and I think one more, you won't really see me battling her because they're just that simple. Okay, now that all of that is out the way, let's actually get into the run. After about the first hour of dialogue and filler, that is. Now, one thing I want you guys to understand now is that up until about the first gym, I was still treating this like my original video idea, so I was mainly going off the designs of the starters in the beginning right here. I had no clue what their movesets or stats were because I just wanted to remain dumb on purpose. After about 30 seconds of thinking, I decided to go with Sprigatito because I realized I hadn't picked the grass-type starter since probably like Pokemon X and Y, and cats are kinda cool, I guess, I don't know. I decided to name him Gary Holt because even though that man has been assaulting eardrums of metal fans with riffs and solos for decades, the man does indeed have a soft spot for kitty cats. Just check out his Instagram page if you don't believe me. I then beat Nemona in our first battle together because I have more than 4 functioning brain cells. And after I made my way out into the real world for the first time, I had to catch everyone's favorite fat little fucker Lechonk. He shall receive a name befitting of a king. You know, I really was a big fan of the open world design before I got to Casaroya Lake. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm gonna skip most of the plot stuff because, I mean, the game's been out for like 3 months at this point, and if I kept it all in, this video would be longer than both Avatar movies put together, and nobody really wants that. Now, after I got introduced to the Victory Road and the Path of Legends storylines, I did what any reasonable person would do. I would just head straight for the first gym. And I captured a bunch of Pokemon along the way. Now, I wanted to nickname this fletchling Pecker, but unfortunately Nintendo didn't find that name as funny as I did. So I decided to give him a more honorable and distinguished name. Oh yeah, and then this was the battle right here that made me switch from my Nuzlocke to this current video idea. My entire team wiped to a friggin' Mischief. It was pathetic. After that, I challenged Gym Leader Katie and Cortando. I lost my first attempt because I suck eggs, among other things, which led me to go out into the world in order to get some more type coverage to my team, and I also questioned my existence in its entirety. The second time around at the gym made me feel like I actually knew what the hell I was doing again in a Pokemon game because I managed to whoop Katie's cake up and down this barren wasteland. Her Nimble went down without much of a fight at all, and then when Tarantula came in, it was more of the same. We traded hits for a couple turns, and then I decided to use a potion just to keep myself safe from a crit. That is heal number 1 for this battle. Tarantula got sent to Cleveland, and I was feeling good, but still a little bit shaky. I got swept by Teddy Ursa in her first attempt, and my brain was feeling kind of mushy around this time. Does anyone else think that Katie has like some kind of 5 o'clock shadow going on, or is that just me? I don't know, man. I got a nice chunk of damage off with Peck now that Teddy Ursa was a bug type, but that didn't save Fletchling from getting sliced up. Now, I got off what I thought was a 1000 IQ play with a terror-boosted flail, but it was this moment that I realized I am nowhere near as intelligent as I think I am. It was all good though, I had everything covered. I sent out my char cadet that I named Meg, short for Mega Man, but this one's a girl so I had to compromise, and I sealed the victory with a single ember. Well, that's badge number 1. You know, I hope my future wife knows literally nothing about baking because I will wind up being like 400 pounds. At some point, I decided that it was time to take on the first Titan Pokemon, Cloth, and I didn't really know how it would go, honestly. You know, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to find it that quickly, but those fears went away when I saw this. You'd think that when I saw the word Stony Cliff Titan that I'd figure out that Cloth was just a rock type, but unfortunately it's not as simple as that. It's really as simple as me just looking it up, but then again, where's the fun in that? I wanted to feel that sense of discovery I had when I was like playing Leaf Green as a kid for the first time. Anyways, instead of making things easier for myself and switching out to either Sprigatito or my new Psyduck that I caught, I wanted to see how much damage I could do with Fletchling, just out of curiosity. I definitely could have done more if I used Flail instead of Quick Attack, but I didn't want to risk being outsped on those last couple of turns, so I opted to get some chip damage off, and eventually Fletchling got knocked out. I figured now was a good time to get a Terra Boosted Grass-type attack off and put an end to this nonsense. Seed Bomb nuked Cloth's health bar, and honestly did way more damage than I thought it would.
Bye, have a great time!
Now, Phase 2 was a little bit weird because... Wait, Phase 2 of Cloth. Why am I talking about this like it's a freaking Elden Ring boss fight? Regardless, I think I got confused because I'm pretty sure Charcadet had fainted already before I went into the first battle, and I think your team gets healed after the first stage of Titan battles. Cannot confirm nor deny this statement because I simply do not care to research whether or not that statement is true anyway. Now, the battle took like 97 years, but eventually Quackerjack the Psyduck finished off with a water pulse, and not in a happy ending kind of way. So we get our first Path of Legends badge, and a few more of Koraidon's brain cells started working again, which meant he remembered how to, you know, run. Then I made my way over to Artisan, where they got a motherfucking windmill. Wow. This game really is like Elden Ring. I immediately went to challenge, Brassius. That's his name. I am literally using a flying type in the grass gym. You're crazy if you think I want to sit here and talk about each separate time that I used Peck. Now, it was a different story when Brassius brought out his Sudowoodo, though. I tried to terror my Fletchling and go for some kind of gimmicky way to win because why not? All I really decided to do was see if Alexi Leho could pull this one off by himself for shits and giggles, really. My entire team was in the back, and in all likelihood, I was gonna win all the time anyway. I hung on with 1 HP with Endure to get a maximum flail, and I decided to give it a shot, but unfortunately for me, the extra power that you're supposed to get from terastallizing was beginning to feel like false advertising. So much so that I was beginning to feel like leaving a bad Yelp review on the, hey man, review bombing works, however petty and childish it may be. Just take a look at Sonic Frontiers and then come back and talk to me. Then again, that's what happens when a bunch of peckerheads that had never felt the touch of a woman decide to unite for a common cause that isn't degrading women online. By the way, did anyone see where Charcadet went? I mean, I could have sworn that I sent her into the battle just now. Oh, she got one shot by Rock Throw. Oh, damn, that's crazy. Anyway, I decided to throw in Bo Peep for the sole purpose of paralyzing Sudowoodo, and I actually wound up getting a static proc, but I would have gotten the paralysis anyway. I mean, eventually Mareep was no longer Bing Chillin', so I had to decide who my closer was gonna be. And I mean, like, come on now, who else would it be? Of course it was gonna be Mr. Gary Holt himself. Mr. Fabulous Disaster, Mr. Rift Lord Supreme, Mr. may or may not have drove Tomarai to the brink of insanity because he kept showing him all these riff ideas when all that Tom wanted to do was retire and go the hell home and be with his grandkids. Mr. Dancing with the Stars during that toxic waltz up and down the Paldea region, kicking ass and taking names, baby. Communication majors when they have a conversation due at 11:59 and they haven't started it yet. Oh yeah, fun fact, after the battle, I accidentally put my controller down, so when Bo Peep was evolving, I couldn't cancel her evolution, and so, yeah, can't really use Mareep anymore now because she's a Flaffy. I should mention now, while I'm thinking of it, that there's a lot of Pokemon that I caught throughout my playthrough that were either not on the team at all, or they were on the team for a short amount of time. And this Drifloon, named Looney Tune, is one of the dudes that was more of a squad rotation player than a starter, if you catch my drift. Now, after Brassius got his assiest kicked, I made my way over to the first Team Starbase, and I gotta say, I thought the whole Director Clavel dressing up as a student was so unfunny that it was hilarious. I forgot about these captures too. These are actually really important because they take up 2 single evolution slots that I'm allowed to have. First one is a Cyclizar that I named Riley, who actually wound up being a team member for the rest of the game. Spoiler alert. And the second one was a Paldean Tauros that I named Matador. Wait, that doesn't look right. Yeah, imagine being literate. Pfft, couldn't be me. Okay, now we get into the first Team Star attempt against the little red-headed stepchild, and I lost because apparently you can use a literal vehicle in battle now. Thank you, Game Freak. Very cool. The battle took a long-ass time to complete, which is definitely a legitimate unit of time. I sped the footage up by 400%, which might make this battle hard to follow, but Do keep in mind that, you know, I'm just a grown-ass man playing Pokemon, so it's safe to assume at the end of the day that I'm probably just going to win the battle at some point. After my first attempt, I realized that even though I was pretty underleveled, I knew I could still win if I just employed a simple tactic that I've seen guys like Pokemon challenges do in their Nuzlocke. You'll see what I mean in a second. Or maybe you won't because the footage is going by way too fast on screen. Just take my word for what's happening. So I sent out Charcadet to essentially be healing fodder for Cyclizar in the back, which means I used my first of 5 heals for the battle. Surprisingly, Meg didn't get destroyed right away, so I was able to use a revive and a super potion to get Psyduck back to full health. Meg did a good job, even if that job was just to get knocked out. I sent in Psyduck so I could get a light screen up and cut the power of the enemy's special attacks. Unfortunately, I wasted my Terra for the battle because Psyduck got rinsed in 2 turns, but the good thing was I still had a couple turns of light screen left. The next 2 turns were basically me just understanding that Fletchling and Sprigatito were useless at this point. At the very least, she went for the overheat on Gary Hole, which helped me out significantly with that special attack drop. Now this is the part where I borrowed a little bit from the pros. Basically, I was just doing a half-assed Intimidate cycle with Riley and Matador. My opponent's stats were lowered enough that I didn't feel too threatened, so I switched in Riley and I just began chipping away with Breaking Swipe after a little while, which has the added bonus of dropping the target's attack when it hits. So after a couple turns of that, I switched in Tauros to get the Intimidate drop, which now put my opponent at -3 attack, in addition to the special attack drop that she got from Overheat earlier. Honestly, there really wasn't much after that. I mean, the only thing that would have pissed me off is if I got hit by a crit, and at that point I would have just launched my computer into the Delaware River. I wound up using my 4th heal overall in the battle, but thankfully I didn't get cheesed by any unwanted surprises, and Tauros finished off the battle with a simple double kick. After obtaining the soul of the first Team Star boss, I headed over to Lavencia for what was probably the most cringe gym leader encounter that I've seen in a while. But first and foremost, I captured one of my favorite Pokemon, and a Pokemon that turned out to be a mainstay of the team. I needed some electric type coverage after the whole Mareep fiasco, and I captured this Rotom that had a friggin' modest nature, by the way, and I gave him the name befitting of a god. Before the gym leader, there's obviously a battle with Nemona here, and I'm not going to bother showing it because, like I said, she got absolutely waxed to the point that she may have to consider changing her name and becoming a sheep herder in the Falkland Islands. What fucking islands? These fucking islands. And after all the distractions, I can finally talk about the gym battle against Iono, and yeah, the battle was slightly interesting, but I couldn't help but get distracted by Iono's freaking fang teeth. That's the one minor detail that really ties together the whole cringy streamer vibe, you know? All that she's missing is a G Fuel partnership and a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship, and she's a shoo-in for the next big thing on YouTube. The battle against Iono was about as mentally taxing as babysitting a hibernating lizard. Actually, taking care of a hibernating lizard would probably take a lot more effort than this. At least you would have to walk over to the tank and, you know, check the heat lamp every once in a while to make sure that your little homie isn't freezing his balls off. I probably would have to put more effort into thinking about a way to make this battle even more difficult for myself than I already did if I wanted any sort of real brain stimulation. I thought using base evolutions would be a challenge, but turns out when you put a glass cannon dragon type in an area about 2 hours into the game, you face a bit of a balancing issue, so to speak, especially considering all the fairy and ice types are towards the ass end of the game. Back in my day when I was just a strapping young lad with a ginormous overbite, gym leaders weren't there just to teach you about how type coverage work and how to prepare you for a few semi-difficult battles at the end of the game. Actually, wait, that's exactly what they were there for. There goes my entire rant out the damn window. So before I knew it, Iono was down to 2 Pokemon, and I sent out my Growlithe that I named Tremonti after this absolute stud of a guitarist and a songwriter. Oh yeah, I forgot to record the footage of me capturing him. Everyone, meet Tremonti. Tremonti, meet the audience. So, anyway, at some point, I taught U-turn the Gary Hole, and I was able to use it with some decent effect in this battle. I used it to take out Belly Bolt and the switch back into Cyclizar without having to wait for a turn and then take damage on the switch in. So, as for the end of the battle, the only real risk was losing Riley. I mean, there was no danger to me losing this thing whatsoever. You know, Riley managed to break Confusion once and get a Breaking Swipe off, and then the next turn after that, she completely snapped out of Confusion and landed a final blow into Mismagius, landing us our 3rd gym badge. I'm not gonna lie, this video might turn out to be like an hour and a half long even if I speed up the footage on everything. Basically, I decided while I was editing the video that I'm only gonna show the highlights of each battle, and the challenging ones you know, because this shit is like numbing my brain, and I don't know if I can sit here for 76 hours while I repeat myself like, hey, I use this move, and then I use that move, and then I won. So you are hearing Brandon from the past talk about what future Brandon is going to do while listening to present Brandon in your ears right now. Kinda trippy, I know. But prime example of this, the Orthworm Titan battle. Do y'all really want to sit here and listen to me talk about how I used a fire type move on a steel type and whooped his ass in 3 turns? I graduated high school 6 years ago. I don't need to add any fluffy bullshit to make a word requirement anymore, dude. I did do a little bit of a different strategy in the second phase just for variety's sake. I sent out Motorhead for its first real starring role in a battle, and I pulled some Thunderwave Electro Ball tactics onto the Alaskan Bullworm. Orthworm is the ultimate no thoughts head empty Pokemon. Just look at this dude. By the way, since we're at it, you know, we're probably towards like, you know, a quarter of the way into the video maybe. Make sure you do all like the typical YouTube stuff if you like the video, you know, like maybe comment, all that kind of stuff, you know. So yeah, there's the second Titan badge, and at this point I was really starting to like this Arvin guy, you know. At first I thought he was an asshole, but at my age I should know better than to judge a scowl or to trust a smile. A short while later, as I was leaving the mine, I stumbled upon a wild Rufflet. I knew it was a good opportunity to upgrade my team because Fletchling was starting to become quickly outclassed. He was basically about as useful as tits on a bull at this point. I named this Rufflet after a god that was taken away from this planet so soon. And quite a dapper gentleman if I do say so myself. See? Not all metal musicians look like neckbeards that work at a local gas station. After an undisclosed amount of time, I found myself at this Pokemon Center with a noticeably stronger team and some strategic item and moveset changes to Riley. That's because this is after I attempted the Atticus battle and I got absolutely rinsed when I got to his Starmobile. So I devised a somewhat cheesy and RNG based strategy that would hopefully help me limp across the finish line. I went in a little bit more prepared the second time around. I knew Skuntank would pretty much go for Toxic straight away, so I just gave Tremonti a Pecha Berry and opted for Flame Charge in my first turn. Of course this meant I could no longer Terra for the rest of the battle, but to be honest, I didn't really find Terastallizing that useful until the later parts of the game. Even still, I didn't really use it that much because honestly, I just hate waiting for the animation to finish. I just had that feeling back when Mega Evolution was a thing, and I am the same way now. I'm still upset that Flygon didn't get a friggin' Mega Evolution just because they couldn't think of a design for it. When Revavroom came in, I offered Tremonti as a sacrifice to Arceus and his goth mistress. And this is where I give you a little tease of this absolute god tier strategy I came up with. Mud Slap. Mud Slap has humbly been one of my favorite Pokemon moves throughout the years, and it helps in a pinch, and it has come to save the day yet again. So when Muck came out, I knew I was going to have someone bite the dust. I'm sorry, Gary, but it's for the greater good. Now at this point, it was damage mitigation time, and it was time for me to use my first heal on Riley to prepare her for the later stages of the battle. I was able to get off a light screen with Side Look before he took an L, and now it was time for another round of Mud Slap cheese. I feel absolutely no shame about this. If it's in the game, it's meant to be used.
No, flock of turtles, that's cheating. Why can't you use a real strategy?
A real strategy like what? Over-leveling the hell out of my team and playing one-shot simulator? Now, I knew Riley was eventually going to go down, so I had to start off getting at least one Mud Slap in. One Mud Slap is all you need to get started, dude. The road to victory is paved with heaps and mounts of mud. Now, I decided to send in Rotom to get off a Thunder Wave, and that's when I realized that Starmobiles can't be paralyzed. That's cool. So next turn, I was like, oh, maybe they can be confused. And that's when I realized that, no, they can't be confused either. So now I was panicking Skywalker because my time was running out, and I knew I'd probably need to use all 5 heals this battle. I used my second and third heal to revive Riley and Tremonti. After Rotom fainted, I switched Growlithe just so I can get an Intimidate off, and then the plan was to swap between Rufflet and Growlithe as many times as I could before I could get Cyclizar back in. The only problem is, I tried to get fancy with Tail Whip, and I got struck by a critical hit. Then I sent Growlithe back in, got an Intimidate off, survived a Noxious Torque by the skin of my teeth, did pitiful damage with Fire Fang, and then I pretty much knew it was game over for Tremonti, so I decided to use my 4th heal on Cyclizar to get her back in top shape. It was a race against the clock for the rest of the battle, not only because of toxic spikes, but I was basically relying on RNG as a grown-ass man for the rest of the battle. I mean, hell, that's how I got knocked out of a VGC tournament back in 2011 in Newark, New Jersey, out of all fucking places. My dad drove to Newark just for me to get knocked out by a critical hit. I was literally a single turn away from beating this guy. Shit happens, I don't know, whatever. But to be fair to the kid that I was battling, he was about like 4'7", and I think he was a year older than me, so he wasn't blessed with great genetics, but he was blessed with the luck of the RNG gods. You know, maybe I should have gotten that kid's friend code and stayed in touch. That way, you know, in the future, his luck could have rubbed off on me for like sports betting and shit, because if my luck has been terrible, but my luck in this battle was absolutely insane. At the back end of the battle, Atticus missed 4 Smogs in a row, dude. You know, I would have liked for there to be some kind of better strategy, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, if it works, then it's not stupid. And if it looks stupid, then you're just stupid. It took a couple more turns to get the last hit in, but when I did, I won. Wait, what the hell did I just say? It took a couple more turns to get the last hit in, but when I did, I won. I noticed that when I was climbing up this mountain that the Bombardier up there finally got his balls to drop. Good for him, man. It was about damn time. Now, luckily, when I got in here, I discovered that I was probably slightly overloaded for this when I saw how much damage that flame charge did. I mean, I'm not going to complain after what I went through battling Atticus, man. His name rhymes with Abacus, and it makes sense because I was relying on RNG and equations for that entire damn battle. The first phase of Bombardier was over pretty quickly. And then this dude had the audacity to challenge me again after I just whooped his ass in 3 turns. Now, phase 2 was much quicker because I just switched in Rotom this time and used a single shockwave. I mean, I've got nothing else to say. This was one of the easiest battles of the entire run. This photo right here is why you do not let Arven cook under any circumstances. But in all seriousness, up until this point, you know, I thought he was an absolute lap noodle, but once the whole Mabostiff situation came about and I finally understood his motivation for everything, I did in fact shed the manliest of tears that only true alphas could shed at such heart-melting wholesomeness. Oh yeah, and Kuridon learned how to swim. Would you trust someone that looks like this to carry you on a large body of water? This dude looks like he huffs Elmer's glue and sniffs paint thinner. I went on to take Team Star's Dark-type ace, and there's literally 0 point in showing the battle because I was so overleveled that I just swept him with Sprigatito. Giacomo then invited me to play Dungeons & Dragons with him sometime, to which I politely responded with, "What, do I look like a fucking nerd to you?" I don't know, man. I thought Titan Pokemon were supposed to be bigger than normal. It took me forever to find out what I thought was the Titan, and I couldn't even be sure. Look at me thinking that this dumbass little cat could survive a brick break. I really felt like my back was against the wall for this one, man. I took a peek online to check what I was battling against. A level 45 Great Tusk. My team is in the mid-30s here. I mean, one thing I did right was sending in Tremonti to get Intimidate off. And I basically took a gamble and switched in Motorhead, hoping that Great Tusk would use Brick Break, and of course he did, because I am just nice at this game, man. I am simply Intimidate cycling. That's all I'm doing. The only problem is I sent in Psyduck thinking I could get some good damage off with Water Pulse, but I basically just wound up giving Manny from Ice Age a free +2 speed boost. At this point, I sent Growlithe back in, which put my opponent at -3 attack, and I just had to bite the bullet and get some damage off. I was so underleveled for this fight, and I was running out of conscious Pokemon. I decided to just sacrifice Tremonti and go from there. After some deliberation, I said fuck it and decided to use Confuse Ray, because why not? I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea why I decided to revive Quackerjack here. It's like trying to piece together a night when you got home blackout drunk. Most of the important details escape, but you remember the irrelevant parts of everything. I used the Super Potion to get him back to full health, and RNGesus blessed me with another turn of full confusion. After that, I was able to reach my goal of getting Tremonti back on his feet, and I used my third heal of the battle to revive him. Came at a cost, though. It was at this point that I sent in Tremonti for one last Kumbaya to get Great Tusk to -4 attack and to get some chip damage off. Yeah, I mean, Tremonti didn't really last too long after that. Maybe at some point throughout the battle you noticed the item that I gave to Riley in preparation for a rainy day such as this one. Now, if you don't know, the Rocky Helmet deals a fixed percentage of damage to an attacker that makes physical contact with the holder. And for some reason, it looked like it was dealing a little bit more damage than normal. Maybe it's just like the health bar at the top of the screen looking different. I don't know. I mean, the end of this battle was entirely down to RNG and luck, and when that Brick Break missed right there, I knew it was game over. Riley may be the luckiest person on the planet, but hell, that's one of the reasons why she stayed on the team, dude. She's my good luck charm. And in the end, I didn't even have to worry about surviving an attack with Great Tusk because he missed a Rapid Spin, so I was able to just finish off the first phase of the Titan fight. Now, second phase was a million times easier with the help of Arven, so I'm just going to skip to the point. You know, I lost 3 team members. Riley clutched up with the Rocky Helmet. Let Arven cook. Look at this dude. He definitely drinks his own bathwater. Now this is some cool shit. I've always wanted to cosplay as a military fighter jet, but unfortunately, I don't see any balloons getting ready to get shot down, so that might have to wait for next time. After I spent an egregious amount of money that wasn't mine in order to get some seaweed that had glitter on it, I decided to stay in the port for a split second longer so I could get my hands on a very important item. I spent an undisclosed amount of cash money in the auction so I could get my hands on the Rotom catalog, which meant I could finally replace the damn microwave in my stupid dorm back at the academy. That shit couldn't even heat up 2 Hot Pockets, bro, like come on now. Now this was pretty pivotal because it meant that I could change Rotom into his Wash Form, which meant I could finally have a solid water type on my team and that I didn't need Psyduck anymore. So I decided to just replace Psyduck with a Ghastly that I caught earlier, and I decided to name Ghastly Possessed. I don't listen to them, but it's a reference to a metal band, so I feel obliged to take the opportunity. Now, if there was ever a battle to feel good about, it was definitely the gym battle against Kofu. It was literally paradise for Motorhead and Gary Holt. Okay, here's a quick recap of how the Kofu battle went. Veluza, one shot. Rotom forgot Electro Ball and learned Hex. Rotom got headbutted by Wugtrio and flinched. But next turn, I didn't suffer any unwanted game mechanics and sent Wugtrio packing just like your dad after your parents divorced. Kofu sent out his third and final Pokemon, and I think you all know what happened. That's right, I wanted to extend Kofu's suffering just a little bit longer, so I paralyzed Crabominable on the first turn. And to add insult to injury, he got stuck with full paralysis, which meant he could not, in fact, get it up that night when he hit up that chick from the bar with a huge gap in her teeth. I'm talking some Michael Strahan, Thally Thell Seashells down by the seashore head ass. But the next turn it was all over. I got a single shockwave in, the Crabman couldn't cometh, 4th gym badge in the bag. After I defeated Kofu, I just did what I thought would make the most sense and battle the rest of the gym leaders. Dude, Larry is one of my favorite characters in the entire history of Pokemon. They could not have captured the soul-crushed and lifeless corporate professional look any more than they did. Look at the bags under this man's eyes. The Larry fight was still relatively easy, but that didn't mean that it was a perfect clean sweep. I went for a Hone Claws on turn 1 and Komala did a metric fuck ton of damage with Slam, dude. Sprigatito came in clutch, though. Next turn, Larry sent out Dun Sparse. Oh my god, I didn't want to lose Gary Holt for no reason, so I opted to switch in Possess, thinking that Larry the Lawyer would use a normal attack. He did, and so I got a safe switch in. I was hoping to get a knockout with Icy Wind here, but it looks like Ghastly was just a tad underleveled for that. But the next turn, we were able to outspeed this absolute joke of a creature and get a knockout with Dark Pulse. Once Staraptor came in, I just decided to sack Ghastly because I didn't really need him anymore for the battle. If there was ever a more obvious move to make than sending in Cyclizar, please let me know. I'll wait. Staraptor went for a Facade on this turn, and once I saw that, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, but Riley hung on like a champ and delivered one final blow with Dragon Claw to seal our 5th gym badge. 2 easy battles in a row. We got Larry the Rice Ball Rizzler over here. Now, we're not going to waste any more time. I'm just going to get right into this battle with Rhyme. I thought this battle was going to be a piece of cake, but turns out Rhyme was doing the most to make my spine shake. Icy Wind on a Banette? I wasn't prepared for that at all. I bet you thought I was going to keep trying to rhyme my lines, didn't you? Well, it's like, dickhead, I ain't no wordsmith. In all seriousness, though, I thought it would be cool because, you know, I was over level, but Rhyme's battle was actually a little bit challenging. It was obvious that Chuck really wasn't going to be that much of help for me going forward, so I just let him go down there. I wanted to make sure Banette was gone, so I risked keeping Gary Holton, which paid off after he survived with the tiniest bit of health. Rhyme sent out her Houndstone, and I think it's pretty obvious who I'm bringing out here, you know what I'm saying? I don't know about you guys, but I thought the crowd interaction was pretty cool in this battle. The fact that either you or Rhyme can get stat boost depending on what happens is pretty cool, and I feel like Nuzlockers, you know, have to really watch out for that kind of stuff. So I wanted to keep Gary Holt alive because that's my guy. So I switched him out, threw Tremonti in. So not only does Intimidate help, but Tremonti can also hit pretty hard offensively. I figured if I got stuck here, I could just keep Intimidate cycling, but I didn't really feel like I was going to need that. Tremonti took some damage this turn, but Riley was now +2 in attack and in speed. But on the next turn, I forgot that Mimikyu is a fairy type and I used Dragon Claw on it like the intelligent, college-educated man that I am. Houndstone even outsped Growlithe. I decided to send in Ghastly, and the crowd decided to give Rhyme's Pokemon performance enhancements to boost their accuracy. When Mimikyu went for Shadow Sneak, I thought it was game over for Possess, but he hung on like a champ. Now, I messed up on this turn because in hindsight, I should have just double targeted one of her Pokemon to guarantee a knockout, and there's really no reason not to. I don't know why I didn't do it. Next turn, it was a soul for a soul. Ghastly fell to Shadow Sneak, but I was able to take out her Houndstone with an Aerial Ace from Riley. As I was sending out Rotom, I knew this would be a big turn, especially considering Rhyme's Pokemon all got a speed boost, but I had a trick up my sleeve. I'll bet that Rhyme wished she kept Toxicity as an Electric-type Pokemon. Riley was still able to outspeed Mimikyu and pick up a knockout with Aerial Ace. After Toxicity almost KO'd Riley with a Hyper Voice, Rotom connected with a Thunder Wave with Rhyme's now Ghost-type Toxicity. Aw, wow, look, the crowd cheered on Rhyme's Pokemon and it got all of its stats boosted, that's cute. Hopefully Rhyme likes dragons, because on the last turn Riley was dragging her lady nuts all over this bitch-ass arena and showing Rhyme and the crowd who's the boss around here. That's me. I'm the guy. Not you. Me. Before we get into the Psychic Gym, there is a rival battle against Nemona. Like I said before, the battles aren't challenging until the endgame, so I was basically able to sweep her entire team with my friggin' Sprigatito. The battle against Tulip went pretty smoothly. Quick and easily. Surgical, some might say. I just decided to set up with Shift Gear. Farigiraf is a physical attacker, so once it got the Rocky Helmet recoil, I was pretty much guaranteed to knock it out. After a Dragon Claw from the good guys, Riley survived a Zen Headbutt, which basically meant that we were up by 1 in this battle. Tulip sent in Gardevoir, and I knew I'd have to sacrifice someone, but for some reason I thought I could one-shot Gardevoir with Thunderfang, and I guess you could figure out how this turned out. So I sent in Ghastly, a Ghost type versus a Psychic type. What could possibly go wrong? The good thing about my team is that whatever Ghastly lacks, every other team member can pick up the slack because they are all much more competent in battle than he is. Next up is a Spathra, and I had a feeling that it would be faster than Rotom, so I opted for a Thunder Wave on this turn. That way I could just nuke it with Hex in the next turn. And that's exactly what I did. Nighty-night. I did the same thing once Tulip sent out her Florges. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I was simply preparing for my victory lap when I used Thunder Wave, thinking it would just be smooth sailing, and then Florges gave me a heart attack when she almost one-shotted Rotom. Then I got extremely lucky next turn with that frickin' full paralysis. I mean, I had 3 other Pokemon left, so I was still gonna win the battle, but I at least wanted Rotom to be able to get the last hit in. Just like that, we're up to 7 gym badges and nearing at the end of our conquest of the Paldea region. Who does Tulip think she is making me do this goofy-ass pose? Next up is the final gym battle against Grusha, and I've gotta say, man, Grusha's gotta be one of the prettiest female characters I've seen in these games. I mean, she just got a simple sort of beauty about her that... Wait, Grusha's not a woman?
Holy fish paste! It's a guy!
I think starting out with Growlithe was probably the most obvious thing I could do heading into this battle, and I don't really need to talk about why that I did it. Frostmoth was able to outspeed and set up a Tailwind, but all it took was one Flame Charge to send it to the Shadow Realm. Any more than that, and Growlithe would have been immediately cut from the team. Beartic came in, and I think what happened here is that I must have not been paying attention when Frostmoth set up Tailwind, because I don't know why I stayed in here. I sent in Rotom and went for a Hydro Pump to get some damage off, because I knew it would take no more than a 2-shot for a knockout, but I got flinched by Icicle Crash. Next turn I was cool. Icicle Crash connected, but there were no flinches. Next turn we were faster, so a simple Shockwave restored my lead in the battle. Grusha then sent out his Satitan, and I opted for a Shockwave at first just to see how much damage I can get away with. After seeing that, I didn't want this to turn into a war of attrition, so I knew I'd have to risk going for Hydro Pump next turn. Luckily we connected, and we brought Grusha down to his last Pokemon. Grusha brought out his trump card, and my immediate reaction was to go for Thunder Wave. In hindsight, there probably wasn't a reason to do this, and I probably should have just went for damage instead, but oh well, it is what it is. Next turn, we started piling on the damage and the misery as we connected a Hydro Pump, and Altaria connected with a Paralysis. I switched out in the Chuck next turn because I was setting up for something in particular. Altaria hit hard with a Dragon Pulse, but Chuck was man enough to take that punch and reply with a slash of his own. The damage from that put Altaria into pretty much one-shot range, and Chuck was subsequently sent to timeout by another Dragon Pulse. It would be sacrilegious if Gary Holt wasn't the one to get the final hit on the last gym leader. One Seed Bomb from him sealed our 8th and final gym badge in the Paldea region. I kinda like Grusha. Definitely a cool guy. Definitely not a woman. Now getting into this battle against Ortega, I didn't really know what to expect because I felt like my team matched up horribly against Fairy types. I didn't have any Poison or Steel types, and the main offensive threat on my team is Cyclizar, but the good thing is we have a sentient washer machine at our disposal that just so happens to be built way different than anything that we are battling. So Ortega sent in Wigglytuff after I knocked out Azumarill, and I took a peek at his moveset online and I literally felt zero threat from this thing whatsoever, so I just kept Rotom in and let him cook. No sense in risking a Hydro Pump miss, so I just went for the safe bet and used Discharge. And I sent in Chuck while this dude twirls his cane around on stage like a friggin' Walmart version of one of those cheerleaders that does flagpole tricks and shit. I'd rather watch paint dry, then a cheerleading competition, and then rewatch my Ortega battle in that order. I sent in Tremonti to get off and Intimidate, but I took him right back out again. Darkspun's well-baked body ability makes Fire-type moves useless, and they'd also boost its defense by 2 stages. So with Sprigatito in and now a -2 attack, I had a choice to make. I could sit in and whittle down my opponent's HP 1mm at a time, or I could risk switching out into another Pokemon and like taking a crit or something. That would not spark joy. So basically I just switched in Growlithe to get another Intimidate off. After a few more turns, I sent in Rotom to finish the job. There's no point in me showing the 5 turns that I was using Seed Bomb because you guys would lose your damn minds. Is it bad that I don't remember what Misty Terrain does? I made the obvious play and I began the Intimidate cycle with Growlithe, and this is when I realized that if I kept Growlithe healthy, I'd just win the battle. The only damaging moves that this Starmobile had were Steel and Fairy type, both of which we resist. Then I switched out Growlithe for Ghastly. Then I switched Growlithe back in to get Revavroom down to -2, and you know what? This battle was just easy as hell. I'm just gonna skip right to the end so I don't waste any more of my oxygen here. TLDR, Starmobile was at -4 attack, Gary Holt was boosted by 2 uses of Hone Claws, I got a crit before this one, we snapped out of confusion, and we landed one final attack with Seed Bomb. You know, for a guy that's annoying and abrasive, Ortega does give a nice handshake. As I advanced further to the final Titan battle, I discovered that if something in this game can go wrong, it will undoubtedly happen at Casaroya Lake. What the hell is he doing up there? I don't know, man. I think this Tatsugiri is the Titan. I mean, it's really not as impressive as the other ones, but sizes and everything, I guess. At least that's what I tell myself before I try. Oh my god, what the hell is that? Ah, Dundozo is the False Dragon Titan. Honestly, the moniker False Dragon Titan would be so funny if they gave it to a Gyarados, but I feel like that would just hurt his feelings more than anything. And this turned out to be the easiest Titan battle out of all of them other than Bombardier. One single discharge from Rotom and that was enough to end the first phase and scare Dun Bozo away. Me when the girl I'm talking to says she believes in astrology. On the first turn of phase 2, I decided against using discharge because I didn't want to damage Arven's Greedent for some reason. But it worked out in my favor because Dundozo happened to target my slot with a body slam, meaning that we got a free damage with Greedent off. Next turn I wanted to get Dundozo's speed under control, so I used an Icy Wind. I knew the battle would just be one in the back end, so I wasn't really concerned about how much damage I was doing now. Greedent got confused, but it managed to keep its wits about it and get off another takedown. I figured now would be a good time to start chipping away, and Gastly's Shadow Ball did a solid amount of damage, but unfortunately Possess was the target of an Aqua Tail, and at this point in the run, if you pretty much sneeze in Gastly's direction, it's getting knocked out. Now is the time to send in the closer. I wanted to use Home Claws at least once, so that's what I did on the first turn. Then Dozo used the Body Slam, but not on Sprigatito, so we were safe for that turn. And I think you all know what happens here.
Be gone, fuck!
This dude really wanted to step in after he just saw his partner get waxed. Respect. Needless to say, that decision didn't really work out well for him because much like his partner, Tatsugiri got taken to the cleaners in a matter of a couple turns. This is how the CEO of Popeyes thinks people react whenever they eat one of their friggin' spicy chicken sandwiches. Oh, he can climb up walls now. That would have been nice to have like 16 in-game hours ago. The final Team Star battle was easily the most trouble I had with any battle in the later part of the game, mostly because of how my team was built. After a few failed attempts, I realized that I just couldn't have anyone on my team withstand her attacks or dish out enough power. So that's when I decided to catch a Pokemon that's been pretty much all-reliable for me in recent years. Viewers, meet Heart the Hawlucha. This girl is going to be our key to winning this battle, and you're going to see why. I had to strategize a little bit before the winning attempt, and here's what enabled me to finally win against Aerie. I would lead with Gastly and immediately go for Destiny Bomb because Toxicroak always go for Sucker Punch here. Aerie's Toxicroak only knows Sucker Punch and then moves that don't really affect Gastly, so I mean this just makes sense. On the second turn, Sucker Punch is guaranteed to come out, so it's pretty much just a free knockout all the time. After that, our secret weapon Hawlucha gets sent in with her Passimian, and then immediately gets switched back out to Growlithe to start the Intimidate cycle. Unfortunately, it looks like the cycle had stopped cycling before it even started. And then I just thought to myself, screw it, let me just go for the win now. So I sent in Hawlucha and started to execute my foolproof 1 billion IQ plan, setting up with Bulk Up. So after 2 and 3 uses of Bulk Up, I used my first heal of the battle to get Hawlucha's HP back up a little bit. After a couple more turns, Hawlucha was now +5 in attack and defense, and I was in good shape for the remainder of the battle. The next turn was when I began my Hawlucha onslaught. Aerie sent out her Annihilate next, and I was like, oh shit, this thing's got Ice Punch, I'm gonna die. And then I was like, wait, we're at +5 defense. Now Aerie sent in her Lucario, and I had to use my third heal of the battle just so I could scout how much damage a Dragon Pulse would do. If it was more than half, I'd be in trouble. Luckily for me, Dragon Pulse did about 40%, which meant I could take another one, so I bit the bullet, went for Flying Press, and I actually got hit by a crit and survived before sending Lucario to the Shadow Realm. Aerie was down to her Starmobile, but I was not afraid at all, man. I mean, I still had the heal though, of course. It literally couldn't touch me. Combat Torque wouldn't be effective, high horsepower wouldn't affect me at all, and you just saw Spin Out do nothing. With my eyes on the prize, I clicked on Flying Press, and Hawlucha just absolutely destroyed with one attack. That is why you do not sleep on Hawlucha. I hope you guys learned something. Now, before we get into this battle with Director Clavel, let me just say, I want to apologize for how long this video has taken to get out to you guys. My excuse is that I was simply being driven to the brink of insanity for having to commentate over Pokemon battles, and if I do this in the future, I'm definitely going to have to, like, live commentary, you know, or something like that. Anyways, this is a good time to introduce Lucretia, my Scyther. I forgot to record me capturing her. It must have slipped my mind when I caught her, but when I did, I couldn't fathom why I didn't do it before. Scyther is pretty much, you know, has the stats of a fully evolved Pokemon since Scyther and Scizor have the same base stat total. I brought her in as Hawlucha's replacement so I could put Rotom back in the team. The battle started to pick up the next turn once I broke Clavel's Reflect with Brick Break. I got nervous once I saw Foul Play happen, but we managed to hang on even though we got mollywopped. Gyarados came in and I knew Lucretia had to come out. In order to get a safe switch in the Rotom, I offered up Sprigatito as a sacrifice to the Pokemon gods. I'm sorry, Gary. Gary Holt is a winner first and foremost. He would understand. Clavel sent in Barack Obama Snow, and I was in the same situation as I was with Gyarados. Not an ideal matchup. By this point in the video, we've already established I have more than 4 functioning brain cells, depending on the day, so I sent in Tremonti. Obama Mama had Lady Luck on his side and got a critical hit with Blizzard, but we struck right back with a Flamethrower that definitely would have knocked it out if it wasn't for that damn Aurora Veil. Next turn, we weathered the storm once again and hung on with a Moogle Segel's worth of health. I was feeling pretty good because we only had 2 turns of Aurora Veil left. Poltegeist came out to play, and I switched into someone more fitting of this assignment. Poltegeist was more of a buffer than anything. It got crushed by a Dragon Claw, and then had the audacity to burn my beloved Cyclizar with a damn Will-O-Wisp. Aurora Veil finally ended, and yeah, we got burned, but I figured Riley's Shed Skin ability would more than likely take care of that at some point. In the end, Poltegeist played itself because it went for Sucker Punch, and then immediately fainted from Rocky Helmet damage. Clavel sent out, I decided to go for Shift Gear because why not? I was ready to keep Riley in, and I wanted her attack buff for when Skeledirge came in. We got hit with Giga Drain, but it's whatever. I decided enough was enough and used our first heal of the battle to fully restore Riley with a full restore. After we got hit with Spore, I just decided to keep Riley in and take the sleep turns, but eventually we knocked out Amoonguss's bitch ass with an Ice Spinner. And of course I triggered Effect Spore afterwards because that's just what I do. Director Clive sent out his Skeledirge, and I used Dragon Claw and then immediately took an Earth Power directly to the face. And then I finally gave in and decided to terrorize Cyclizar, even though I hate waiting for the damn animation to finish. That is literally the only reason why you haven't seen me terrestrialize my Pokemon more often. I just hate waiting for the animation. That's it. Now on to another cakewalk of a battle. Get it? Because Cakewalk and Arvin's a good cook? Wait, I screwed up. I should have used that freaking joke against Katie. Honestly, guys, this battle is not interesting at all. I mean, I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste my time talking about a battle so insignificant and mundane that both you and I would probably fall asleep and start drooling like a Neanderthal. Arvin managed to knock out a couple of my Pokemon, but one of them is Ghastly, and at the end of the day, that doesn't really count now, does it? But at least for now, we finished off the Path of Legends and the first of 4 story arcs. Alright folks, here it is. Crunch time. We're approaching the end of Victory Road, man. The final Team Star battle comes after the Champion battle, and then we're on our way to close out the game in the great creator of Paldea. If you've made it this far into the video, I appreciate the hell out of you for making it, man. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's get into the Elite Four. Would you guys believe me if I said I failed the fucking interview the first time around? It wouldn't be a Flock of Turtles video if I didn't do something as brain dead as that. First up in the Elite Four, we've got every questioning woman's lesbian awakening, Rika. This battle was the perfect place to showcase that even though Sprigatito looks like he hasn't had a single viable brain impulse that can be considered an actual thought by an intelligent living creature, he's got just enough brain power to one-shot Whiscash. Rika sent in Camera Up, and I was not feeling very lucky on that day, so I sent in Rotom to take out the trash. Motorhead took a Fire Blast to the chin like a champ because that is just what he does. I mean, not much else to say here. Rotom absolutely rinsed Camera Up here. Pun 100% intended. Rika sent out another future victim in Donphan, and this was a little less straightforward, but only because Donphan had the sturdy ability and avoided getting one-tapped. Rotom showcased its defensive prowess by taking a Stone Edge, and then we just sent Donphan packing with a Hex. Rika sent out her 3 little turds, and I knew I wouldn't move first, but that didn't matter. Dugtrio only set up a Sandstorm before getting blasted with 100 gallons of gently used bathwater. Rika sent out her Ace and Clodsire, and I thought about switching out because it has Water Absorb. I decided to stay in and get off some chip damage with Hex for a few turns, but I would just have to wait until after this turn. I kept Rotom in for a couple turns after that, but once I saw the damage that Hex was doing, it dawned on me that I would be wasting valuable seconds of my life watching my washing machine battle an obese Axolotl. So, to prevent myself from slowly descending into madness, I just sent in Riley and ended the frickin' battle Tanya Harding style. It's been a while since I played through Pokemon Platinum, but I feel like Bertha is more of a ground type challenge than this. The funniest part about with Poppy is that she looks like a girl that's not even freaking potty trained yet. No, Poppy leads off with Copperaja, and right away I was looking to switch out Growlithe. I was expecting a high horsepower. Now, instead of that, she decided to go for Stealth Rock. All of a sudden, I actually had to think about my switch-ins. I realized that Copperaja couldn't one-shot me, so I decided to set up a Swords Dance and hope I could one-shot it with Brick Break on the next turn. And that did not work. Copperaja held on with like 2 HP and then just destroyed me. I had to be wary of Stealth Rocks now, so I sent in Possess to conserve my other team members for a little bit. I knew I would outspeed here, so a nice little Shadow Ball even up the battle. Poppy sent in Bronzong, and then a Light Bulb went off in my head. Ghastly's weaker than a newborn baby, so I could just do the Destiny Bond strategy. So I queued it up, but Bronzong missed its friggin' Zen Headbutt. No problem, I'll just use Destiny Bond again, that I thought. And that's when I discovered that, nah, you can't really do that. I sent in Tremonti, who was greeted by a ton of bricks being dropped onto a skull, and I was hoping with the Intimidate attack drop, I could survive just one Earthquake from Bronzong. I could comfortably two-shot it with Flamethrower, and I was relieved to see that burn, man, because Earthquake barely did anything. And of course, we just knocked it out after that. Poppy sent in her Corviknight, and I made a beeline for Rotom. I figured it would most likely elect to use Brave Bird since it would hypothetically do the most damage to Growlithe, so I wasn't really going to take that much damage overall. I thought that Corviknight would put up more of a fight than that, but I guess not, man. Next up was Officer Magnezone, and I fancy my chances against this overgrown tin pot. I knew that it would take at least 2 hits to take this dude out because it's sturdy, and after I connected that Hydro Pump, I was happy to see it go for Light Screen. Rotom would live to see another day. Now for her last trick, Poppy sent out the furry version of Bob the Builder. Now first things first was the Paralyzed Tinkaton because I wanted to get 2 full paralyses, hopefully by the grace of everything. A critical hit from Play Rough didn't really do anything, and next turn we connected Hydro Pump for a whopping whatever amount of damage that did. Now off the back of the full paralysis, I was just trying to chip away as much damage as I could. Rotom fought valiantly, but it just barely missed out on knocking out 3 straight Pokemon and went down. Then just for the hell of it, I just had Tremont to use Flare Blitz because I thought it was complete overkill and I thought it would be funny. That is 2 members down of the Elite Four. Now let's get on to the third. Well, if it isn't Mr. Ray of Sunshine himself. Larry needs a pick-me-up, man. Get this man a Red Bull or some Colombian snow dust. Anything. Something. I led with Riley because I had to plan the setup a little bit before wreaking havoc on Larry's team. I knew Tropius was hiding a cheeky little Dragon Pulse in his moveset, but it's a friggin' Tropius. I mean, if Riley got killed by this thing, I would immediately and permanently cut her from the team. Even though Tropius has Chlorophyll, you're not outspeeding a +2 Cyclizar at all. It's not happening. Is outspeeding even like proper grammar? I didn't want to use Shift Gear again just to compensate for the attack drop, so I just went for Ice Spinner. I didn't one-shot Staraptor, and my heart briefly stopped once I saw close combat, but Riley survived, and she thrived. Wait, it says right here that Larry's supposed to have 5 Pokemon. Where's his Altaria at? I don't even think I saw it go into the battle. Weird. Now, Riley's Reign of Terror unfortunately got halted at Oricorio because I went for Ice Spinner, and I came up just short. Lucretia came in, and I thought of switching out, but that wasn't necessary. Larry the Lobster sent out his Pelican. Yes, I understand that Flamigo's a fucking flamingo. I was making a Scarface reference. And I took out just about half of its HP with an Acrobatics. However, Flamigo took out all of Scyther's HP with a Brave Bird. In the end, I sent in Motorhead to clean up the remaining mess, and we were actually faster than Flamigo, which is something I was not expecting. Good fight, Larry. I'll see you back in the office on Monday. Going into the final battle against Hassel, I knew this could very easily go either way. It would just come down to whether or not Riley was healthy in the back end of the battle, and I know you guys probably realize this at this point, but she is my main offensive threat, so she really has no choice but to carry the team on my back when Ghastly is about as useful as an art teacher in a school for blind kids. I mean, there's not much really to explain on this turn, is there? You know, that's the thing about dragon types that has bugged me as I've gotten older. When I saw, like, Dragonite and Salamence when I was a kid, I was like, damn, these Pokemon are, like, the pinnacle of evolution and just perfect. And now I'm like, damn, these dudes would probably go into cardiac arrest if they got touched by a snowflake in real life. But one thing I've always agreed with is, like, Dragon-type moves are super effective against Dragon-type Pokemon. I mean, it makes sense. If you want to kill a dragon, use another dragon. Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but so far Cyclizar is, like, kind of sweeping Hassel's team all by herself. Hassel sent out the Walmart version of Godzilla next, and I just barely missed out on sweeping through Hassel's entire team with Riley by a smidge of health. I didn't have to worry about bringing another Pokemon in, because you should probably know what happens here if you've been paying attention. Rocky Helmet once again coming in clutch. So, technically, I think I'm going to count that as a sweep for Riley. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Here it is, lads. The penultimate battle against Top G Gita, or is it Gita? I don't know. I led the battle with Ghastly, and at this point, I expected absolutely nothing from him, and yet I was still disappointed. I sent out Lucretia in Ghastly's place, and I gotta say, I definitely could have played better here. I felt like I could have KO'd Espathra with a single X-Scissor, but I didn't quite do it. Regardless, I should have just set up with a Swords Dance on that turn. I was guaranteed to survive at least one non-crit, and I think I could have just swept the rest of Gita's team minus the Avalugg. Gita sent out King Gambit, and such a sick evolution, by the way. And yeah, normally a Brick Break on the Bisharp means good night, sweet prince, but not on this dude. Swords Dance a couple turns ago might have went a long way. But everything turned out randy dandy once I sent in Growlithe. He was faster, and that meant a quick revenge KO for me. Gita sent an Avalugg, and, you know, its special defense is awful. Flamethrower is a guaranteed knockout here. Gita sent in every swimmer's best friend, and I switched into a Pokemon that simply carried the team for the rest of the battle. Veluza is not built like Rotom, so he suffered death by washing machine. Gita sent out Go-Go, and I forgot this Pokemon even existed. I switched into Tremonti expecting a Horn Leech, and that's exactly what I got. Gita didn't know what she was looking for since she couldn't fish for a flinch here, and then Growlithe just absolutely hit a monstrous Flare Blitz to knock out Go-Goat. Gita then sent out Glamora, and then I knew I would just have to sacrifice Tremonti here so I could get a clean switch in the Rotom. Well, I mean, I thought I had to, but you wound up going for Earth Power instead. I could have just got a clean switch in the Rotom there. Not that it matters, because not only did Rotom outspeed Glamora, but Rotom ended the battle with a single Hydro Pump. I couldn't help but feel that this was the worst champion battle team that I have ever seen. That battle was way, way too easy. Now, before we get into the next couple sections, keep in mind that at this point, I still haven't beaten Operation Starfall yet. I decided that before I battled Nemona, I would take on Penny since it was finally nightfall. Speaking of killing time, here's the Penny battle in 20 seconds because it was so easy. Now that concludes Starfall Street, which means we've got just the final Nemona battle left for Victory Road, and then it's time for the long way home. We're getting to the end, boys. I might be limping to the finish line, but I'm gonna get there. Alright, so here's the thing with Nemona. The battle's at like 400% speed because I wanted to try to keep the video under an hour. In any case, we knocked out Lycanroc pretty quickly. I mean, that didn't mean anything because Palmont absolutely destroyed Cyclizar with a close combat, and I sent in Ghastly. You know what happens next. I brought in Rotom and I finally got this pin and he has to faint after he wiped out half my freaking team. Nemona sent in her Alaskan Bullworm, but unlike the one from SpongeBob, this guy is not used to water and he doesn't like it. Nemona sent in an actual meme of a Pokemon next and it had enough bulk to withstand a Hydro Pump, and Rotom got wiped out by Hyper Drill. Grisha got fucked up by some Soft Rocks, but she fucked up Dunsparce with a single Brick Break. Now Goodra was a bit of a doozy. I got it down to half health with Acrobatics, but this thing is just way too strong. I sent in Tremonti thinking I'd be faster than this pile of Gwyneth Paltrow goop, but I was wrong. I sent in Gary knowing I needed a revive, so I used my first heal of the battle to revive Riley. Now this is where things got tricky. I felt like I was going to have to use pretty much all my heals here to even get a shot at winning. As soon as the Mighty Duck came in, I used my second heal of the battle to revive Rotom. Quackleval said so long Gay Bowser, but not without the Rocky Helmet at least have something to say back. I sent out my last Pokemon in Rotom, and eventually just came down to using one discharge to beat Nemona's starter, man. Thus sealing the victory for me and getting us one step closer to beating Pokemon Scarlet. Alright, ladies and dudes, I'm here to inform you of another executive decision that I've made. It's nothing too long or complicated, it's just that I'm gonna skip the entire build up in the Long Way Home story arc, and I'm just gonna jump right into the battle against the robotic version of Arven's mother. Actually, wait, before we get into that, I just realized this entire time I've been calling it the Long Way Home when the arc is really just called The Way Home. The battle against the Blast from the Past was befittingly the toughest battle of the entire run, and I actually felt challenged the entire time. Things were simple against Slithering, and I ran into the issue again with Cypher where I probably should have just spammed Swords Dance and just used a couple heals to keep her healthy. I don't know if I could have swept the whole team, but it definitely would have went a long way if I was boosted a lot more. Sada's Flutter Mane can use Power Gems, so as soon as she sent that in, I had a decision to make here. It was a pretty easy one to make at the end of the day. Something that remains true all throughout life is that sometimes you just need things to fall your way in order to succeed. Rotom took a big hit from Shadow Ball. After we retaliated with Discharge, we got a Heaven Sent Paralysis, baby. Next turn, we put Flutter Mane into the dirt with a Hex. Sada sent in her Prehistoric Among Us, and I didn't really like this matchup too much either. But it worked out because I switched into a Giga Drain that did approximately jack shit to Scyther. I decided to set up Swords Dance again, and it worked in my favor because we avoided a Sucker Punch. I used my first heal of the battle by using a Hyper Potion on Lucretia, but then I screwed up the next turn because I didn't realize how much damage that Brute Bonnet can output. Then I got caught up in Sucker Punch, and honestly, I deserved that for my misplays earlier with Scyther. I sent in Tremonti, and there were some encouraging signs there. Flamethrower did just over half health, and we even survived an Earth Power. The problem was, yet again, I was stuck having to worry about a Sucker Punch on the next turn. And the short answer is, I did not in fact survive it. I sent in Riley because I knew if I didn't KO my opponent outright, Rocky Helmet Recoil would just come to the rescue, and that's pretty much what happened. It's nice to have that little bit of assurance every once in a while. Sada sent in her Demonic Jigglypuff, and I was not taking any chances whatsoever here, so I switched in the Rotom, and like always, it took my opponent's attack like a champ. Dude, I don't think you guys have any idea what the hell I've been going through making this video. There's like 16,000 words in this friggin' Word document in my script. The file's so big that the damn Word doc is like starting to glitch in Microsoft Word. My frickin' mouth is dry, my eyeballs are killing me, and before I fall too far into a pit of despair, I had to use my second heal to get Rotom back to full health, And then after about 37 hours, I was finally able to take out the freaking, I don't even know what this thing is called, Screamtail. My brain is fried. AI Sada sent in Sandy Cheeks, and I thought I'd be able to outspeed or at least survive one attack from my opponent. And I was wrong about both of those things. I sent in Gary Holt and decided to use my third heal of the battle to revive Lucretia. Power Gem did over half of Sprigatito's health, and I knew I was in a rough spot here. I decided that Gary Holt would unfortunately not benefit me here, so I just had to use him as bait so I could revive Rotom. The following turn, Sandy Shocks knocked out my little kitty cat, and the pressure was on. I debated for like 5 minutes who to send in, then I finally decided on Riley, man. I got Sandy Shocks down about half health, but at what cost? My team was getting wrecked. It all came down to this, man. I used my final heal of the battle to get Rotom back to full health, and I just had to survive 2 crits in a row. After I used that Hyper Potion, man, Sandy Shocks went for a discharge, just under half health. I ready to Hydro Pump, and Sandy Shocks didn't have Lady Luck on its side. Sada sent in Roaring Moon, and I had no idea how the hell I was going to beat this thing unless I had a miracle happen. But sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them to. I went for a Hail Mary on the first turn with a Thunder Wave, hoping that the universe would hear my plea for help. And by the grace of Danny DeVito, it missed a Stone Edge. With Scyther in the back, Roaring Moon paralyzed, I could get some chip damage off with Rotom, and then cross my fingers and hope to get a knockout with a Terra boosted X-Scissor. Now was the time. Every attack, decision, everything has led to this point. I sent in Lucretia, harnessed the power of the Terra Orb. Could we do it?
Who do you think you are? I am!
The final battle against Koraidon was just a footnote and an amazing run. And I won't go too far into it because I obviously couldn't use my team for this battle. But it's finally over, boys. Well, we're finally at the point in the video where I can answer the question that I posed at the beginning of the video. And I will answer that question with yes. You can beat Pokemon Scarlet without evolving any of your Pokemon. Now, I've been playing Pokemon pretty much all my life, but I've never really done something like this before. I was never really one to do Nuzlocke or anything of that nature. I mean, I did one like years ago on Omega Ruby, but that's as far as it went. I dabbled in VGC a little bit when I was younger, but I haven't really battled online since like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that I haven't really challenged myself in a Pokemon game before like this, and I have to say, things are significantly easier when you have a Pokemon with the Intimidate ability. I also want to apologize to my regular viewers for the amount of time that this video has taken to get out, you know? I didn't anticipate how tedious it would be to make the video, to be honest, and it sounds kind of harsh, but it's the truth, man. I can only think of so many different ways to describe how I used the super effective move on the thing, and then I won, you know? Now, before I go, I just want to thank you all for watching, no matter if you made it this far into the video, or if you stopped after, like, the first minute or two. Every view counts, and I'm grateful for every second of time that you guys spend with me. So if you liked the video, let me know in the comment section below. Drop a sub if you feel so inclined, because I could probably see myself doing this type of stuff in the future with other Pokemon games. So, anyways, I think I've done enough and said enough for today. I've been Flock of Turtles, you've been amazing, and I'll see you all soon. Take care of yourselves, guys. See you later.